Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
You know, as we start looking toward the last month of summertime, we're also going to be looking at the start of new adventures for a lot of our young people. Some of them are going off to college or trade school or just maybe moving on from where they have been. And sometimes part of that is the bittersweet time of breaking up with someone you have shared your life with, your love with, maybe your high school sweethearts, and you're going in opposite directions or you're going to different schools, and you realize the long distance thing might not work. And this is a kind of thing that can turn really, really ugly. And today we want to talk about how to break up if you know that's going to happen without letting it break your spirit. And sisters, I want us to talk a little bit about how young people tend to, well, we all put importance on our relationships, but when we're young, we tend to think of something as all or nothing. And some of that can turn really very, not just toxic, it can turn abusive, it can even turn fatal. So before we get to that point, let's talk about some of the things that people can do when they're breaking up, and even just how to grieve a relationship so that you can move on. Anybody got some ideas first?
I think that it is important to allow the person to grieve the relationship. Sometimes we're too quick to want to jump in and say, oh, get over it. I remember when I was in college and there was a group of us, we had a little core group of friends, and there was this couple, Randy and Martha, and not their real names, but they were a great couple. They danced great together, they joked, they laughed, and they were a great compliment to our little group. But when they broke up, because the relationship just started breaking down, they started having different interests. But I remember how Martha ranted about what a dog he was. We had to listen. We were her friend, so we would listen to her. I mean, one day he was a dog, then the next day, oh, wasn't he wonderful? And we lived through that with her to help her go through that. But I actually looked up to see what are some steps we can actually do when you are going through a breakup, having a breakup, and sometimes this might even be a relationship where you weren't just dating, maybe you were married and things started to go awry. And I already mentioned earlier about a book called How Not to Fall in Love with a Jerk. Uh, and they had steps on what things to look for in a person that that might be fulfilling some of those things that you want to avoid. But say things we're going in a normal relationship as they go, and something happens, several things happen, it's time to part ways. One of the things that a psychologist said was actually in a breakup to listen to sad music. Now, sometimes you just need to be able to go through those feelings, cry over the sadness of it. Sometimes putting on music that reminded you of the good times or the sad times helps you to cry that out. Another thing it says was to talk to support people. And that could be a good friend. It might even be your mom or your dad. But you need to have a good friend who can listen to you, who knows you well enough not to judge you, not to use this time to say, well, I told you the dude was wrong. And, you need someone who is going to support you as you are going through this painful process. Another thing it said was to sleep and to eat and to exercise. Now, that might sound real simple, but sometimes if you are so overwhelmed by the breakup, you might forget to eat. You might be losing sleep and you might have given up your exercise regimen. All of these are things that are going to affect your health. You don't want that to happen either. Then it says to meet new people. Now, one thing I would caution against, jumping in with the first person you meet and trying to make
Absolutely.
that relation fill what you lost in the last one. Enter your new friendships very cautiously, very carefully, and be willing to take the time to get to know other people, to find new avenues. Sometimes people find if they've been in a relationship with someone and they were married to them, sometimes they lose all their married friends if they get divorced or they are separated and they no longer have that same social circle and they need to find a bunch of new people. And then lastly, set boundaries. Don't get yourself caught up in the thing that got you caught up in the first place. What have you to say, Naima?
Well, I tell you, as you spoke, I thought of all those things that I've done in a breakup. Listening to the sad music and all of that. But it really is. It's a grieving. You're actually
Yes.
grieving just like a death because it's the death of a relationship. I think it's hard when you have a culture that doesn't really prepare you for an ending of a close relationship with someone. You have the dating cycle, and it's kind of unclear. Okay, where are we going with this? And if it doesn't end in marriage, it's going to end in a breakup. And you're never really prepared for either thing. And so when there is a breakup, people aren't taught how to end something without there being anger. And it's like, how dare you leave me? And usually it involves a feeling of something's wrong with me, and your self-esteem plunges. And then of course there's anger. If the person who you're breaking up with, if they have found someone else they feel more compatible with, then you take it as a slight. I mean, I remember I remember when I was teaching, and two girls in the 8th grade classroom got into a fight because the boyfriend of one was now interested in the other girl. And so when I took the two girls aside and I said, what do you think you're going to solve by fighting? And the girl whose boyfriend had wandered to the other girl said, well, I just want to get my respect. And I thought about that over the years, the idea that someone disrespected you because they took your man, and then you're going to beat them up. But that's kind of the mentality. I mean, if you don't have a healthy way of helping people understand that you can grow apart, you can find other interests. Nobody did anything wrong. It's just you're discovering who you are and who you're compatible with and who you're not compatible with. If you don't have a framework to put that in, then it ends up being like that, where it gets destructive. But I mean, I've been throughout my life, I've been through the grieving process of a breakup, and one particularly very difficult breakup. And I mean, I literally was just torn apart. I was crying all night long, and I called a friend, and she was the friend who knew what to say and took me out to breakfast, and we talked, and I was able to get through it. And when she passed away, that really left a hole, because like, I don't have that person that I can talk to when I'm really in that kind of pain, who knows how to help me through it. But you really, like you're saying, you need somebody who does that. You need somebody who knows how not to say, well, I told you he was no good. You don't need to hear that. You need somebody who's going to empathize.
You don't need to hear that. You don't need someone to tell you to just get over it.
You don't need
there are a lot, and I want to speak to the fact that it's okay to be angry, and because anger is a part of that grieving process.
Right.
what I worry about is, especially from, I mean, women, of course, we get angry, but we also know how to cry. And the thing is that a lot of times when men get angry, and I've said this before, that men don't know how to grieve. They don't know how to cry. They're brought up in a culture, in all cultures, but especially in our patriarchal culture, that boys don't cry. And so what their sadness presents as is anger. And that toxicity also can become violent, which is the reason why you have so many domestic violence cases where the most dangerous time for a woman is when she decides to leave. And one of the things that, and I learned a lot, I've learned a lot, obviously through my own experience and knowing what it's like to put on what Adele or whoever else makes you really want to sit down and cry and get through that. I've had people who've counseled me, you know what? Don't let yourself go. Keep getting up, put your makeup on, look your best the whole time. It's kind of like one of those fake it till you make it. But this summer, I also read something which I highly recommend for all of our gentlemen, especially, but for everyone. And it's called Patriarchy Blues. And it's by Frederick Joseph. I also follow him on Instagram. And he's this a New York Times best-selling author. I read this book, but it talks about just not just white supremacy, but the patriarchy that has men not learning how to cry, not learning how to grieve. And because they don't, they become more frantic, more angry, more abusive. And obviously, women can become abusive too. But we don't know that, okay, this is the end of a chapter. It's not the end of my life. And so nobody's life has to end. And that's what I worry about. I remember when I had my starter marriage,
I love
and
that.
it broke up,
I do too.
and it was awful. And Daddy gave me the best advice. He said, don't let what he did poison you for everyone else. The next person isn't responsible for him. So don't blame the next person. And I took that to heart because that's what we also tend to do. We break up with someone and we decide to punish the next person because
Yeah.
of someone else who got hurt. And so you say, well, I don't trust anybody because this happened to me. Well, that person didn't have anything to do with it. So
Right.
you have to look at everything like this is a fresh start for me. It's a fresh start for them too. Now, if you find that you tend to get the same type of person, because we all can do that,
Yeah.
take
Learn
a
the
step
pattern.
back.
Yeah.
Learn to love yourself first.
Mhm.
It's okay to be on your own for a while. You can take years if you need to figure out what you want, what you don't want, where it went wrong, because, there's always something on both sides that was incompatible. Not saying that one person is wrong and the other person isn't, or even that they're both sides that are wrong. Sometimes it is just one person. But figure out what you want and
Right.
don't let that break you down so that you're punishing everyone and you're coming into every relationship with a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
And another thing that is important, and thank you, Cheryl, for saying that, because that is so important. One of the things in recognizing and loving yourself and accepting yourself is you need to know whose you are and who you belong to. One of the lessons that I learned, and this was from Ephesians, here comes my little Bible lesson, but number one, and you can stick this on your mirror or someplace in your house. I used to do this for my kids. I would have little phrases from the Bible that said, do all things without grumbling or complaining. And they would see that. Or, do all things with a cheerful heart when they didn't
Did
want
it
to,
help?
when they want to. It did help. My goodness. It was helpful because it reminded them stop complaining when it's your turn to do the dishes. But one of the things that you need to remember is that you were created by God. And you can write that. You can, I learned this from the movie Overcomer. I am created by God, so he designed me. So I'm not a mistake. His son died for me, so I could be forgiven. He picked me to be his own, so I'm chosen. He redeemed me, so I am wanted. He showed me grace just so I could be saved. He has a future for me because he loves me. I am a child of God. Sometimes when you are going through a really awful time, all these lies about you from the enemy starts flooding your mind and your heart. Well, maybe there was something wrong with me. Maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe I'm not this. But if you recognize at the core that you belong to God. He loves you. And write it in the first person. I am loved by God. I was created for him. I was created to have fellowship with him. These kind of things renew your spirit, because sometimes another person will say things to make you feel bad about yourself, and you will start to believe them if you are not accepting the truth. Read the truth and it will set you free from bondage.
I think one of the things that makes it difficult when people go through a breakup is that they start to question their worth, and they give
Right.
more power to that other person than that person deserves to have. That person doesn't deserve to have the power to define you, your worth, or your lovability, but you've given them that power, and you've ignored all the other people in your life, let alone the power of the universe. But you have ignored all the other people who love you, and all the other people who tell you wonderful things about yourself, and you focused in on that person who you've allowed into your intimate space, your heart, and you've allowed them to define how you feel about yourself. When I think of people who commit a suicide after a breakup, and then of course all the people who love them are just devastated, and I'm thinking, how come they didn't know all these other people loved and valued them? Why did they give that kind of power to that one person who's just a person, when their
And
life
who
was
probably won't feel bad.
and that's the one who won't feel bad that you
That's
that
the one
you
who won't feel bad. That person might feel
right
relief because now they don't want to have to deal with you anymore. So, and you're right. We tend to give our power, and as women, you're told, oh, you have to have someone. No, you don't. You have you. You
right
already have you. And even if you are not, even if you're atheist, even if you don't believe in God, you still have you. You are still part of the universe. You are part of the human family, and you are loved. You are loved. If you believe in a creator, you are loved by your creator. If you don't, you are still loved. It doesn't matter. The thing is that you are worthy to be here. You are here for a purpose, and your purpose was not that person. So grieve that as you would any death, and then you
Or
can
any
move on.
loss.
And then you can move on. But you have to be able to go through the grief without, you know, well, maybe if I just did this. I mean, we kind of have those stages of grief with the bargaining and the, denial, acceptance, and all those other things. Anger is one of them. I didn't put them all in the right order. But go through those stages. It's okay. Call people and try to have more than one person that you can call when you really feel bad. When you really feel like, you know what? Can I just talk to you for 10 minutes? Or if it's during the day, can I meet you for a cup of coffee? Start to make plans. Start to make plans to do something. Take yourself out for a fancy dinner.
yeah
Do something that person didn't allow you to do, that you always wanted to do. Go on vacation by yourself if you can, and try to do something for yourself, just for yourself, every single day. Watch something funny, and all of these things. And a lot of times you just need to just cry it out. And guys, Cry it out. It's okay.
Yeah.
Don't let the anger consume you, because crying releases the toxic
Yes.
energy that is in you.
Yes.
And it lowers your blood pressure. It does a lot of other good things, and then you can get those endorphins back. Go for a run if you believe in running, which I personally don't, because frankly,
Yeah,
I
I
think,
used to do that too.
yeah,
Run and run and
but you
run and
can
run and
run, you
run.
can walk, you can
Yeah.
dance, you can take a class that you always said, I wanted to do that, but other people thought it was stupid. Whatever you want to do, dance like there's nobody watching,
Mhm.
but we need to do something to keep one person or two people or however many people from consuming us. And now's the time when people are going to be going through transitions for you to say, okay, you know what, this may not work, but let's try to part friendlier. You may not be able to be friends, and
Oh,
most of my
no.
exes I am not friends with at all.
Well,
And
I'm happy to say I don't have any anger toward
I
any
don't have any anger. I
person.
just have no
And
time for them.
well,
Well, and another thing, we live in an age where if you just Google breakups, you can find support groups
Oh
and you can
yes.
find all kinds of places and suggestions that are helpful for your mental health. Because while it's good to grieve the loss, also you don't want to find yourself wallowing in it.
Yeah,
A
you don't
year
want to get
later,
stuck.
you don't still want to be thinking about that person. That
Yeah.
person. I remember
years
I had a
later.
friend once who told her boyfriend, she said, she would they were breaking up, and she said, "I'm gonna take a bunch of pills and end it all." And he told her,
That's
"Just
emotional
make sure
blackmail.
you leave a note so I don't get sent up for it."
Oh,
Oh,
that was ugly.
thanks.
That was ugly.
Yeah,
Just so everybody knows you did this to yourself, they don't blame me.
yeah,
Well,
But you know
see,
what?
that's what you're saying. That
But
person that you're doing that
you know
for,
what? That sounds like really ugly and uncaring. But she was trying to use emotional
yeah,
blackmail.
emotional blackmail. You cannot do that.
And other people have done that too. They want to guilt you into staying with them. Why?
Yeah.
Once you take a step back, and I'm not gonna lie, I have been there.
We've
But
all
once you
been
take
there.
a step back and say, you know what, I ain't even like that person that much.
Yeah, but
And
while
then
you're going through it, you
while
don't
you're going through
you
it,
don't
that
see
person
yourself
is
in it.
is the one for you and the only one who ever made you happy. Take a step back and then to start thinking about all the times that person did not make you happy.
Right.
The times that person made you feel bad, that
Yeah.
time of the gaslighting, all of the other
Yeah.
things. And then when you step back, after you look back, you can kind of get unstuck. Say, you know what? I think I can do better.
Because
You know,
usually when you're breaking up, I mean, you're not breaking up because it was a happy relationship. You're breaking up because it had become unhappy. So
right.
you're grieving what you hoped it could have become,
yeah.
but you have to look at what it actually is. And if what it is isn't
And
really what you
understand
wanted,
people are
you
exes
know,
for a reason.
for a reason.
Even if it's not a good reason, it's
Yeah.
still a reason. And so
Yeah.
you have to look at all of that. And we have to be able to move on, but we first have to be healthy first. So do things to make yourself healthy for the next relationship should you want one.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question: how do we navigate with our young people? This would be our own teenagers. We're past the, oh, that's just puppy love stage. This is a person, maybe your daughter or son, who's had a real relationship with someone and they are broken up over it. How do you help console them as a parent?
As a parent, I would listen. As a parent, I would say, okay, you have to validate their feelings. You can't tell them that it's just puppy love, that they're young, that they'll get over it, because you don't know that. You suspect it because you've had more years on this earth than they have, but you don't necessarily know that. So you have to tell them, you know what? It's okay to grieve. You know what? When they're teenagers, you console them the way you did when they were toddlers, because they're in that same emotional space,
They need a
and
hug.
you have to give them that little extra love. If it's a cuddle, if it's a back rub, if it's, if you got a daughter, let's go get our nails done, let's go get facials, let's go get a massage. If it's your son, let's go play, I don't know, let's go play air hockey, or let's go do some shoot some hoops if you're,
Paintball.
or yeah, I was gonna say paintball, but then there's that whole gun thing. But but do something that they might like, or sit down and play video games with them. And maybe if you're a mom, they don't want that from you. Maybe they want that from someone else. But just say, you know what? I'm here if you need to talk about it. If you need to go somewhere and be by yourself and cry it out, that's okay too. If you want to write me something out, that's fine. Whatever you need to do, I understand that you're hurting. And the thing is, but you have to remind them, and I always tell people this because I know this to be true. It hurts, and sometimes it's even physically hurtful. But in time, you're going to remember the pain, but it won't hurt anymore.
Yeah.
And if you can, it's the worst part is right now. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days, and it's okay. I don't want you to get stuck, but allow them to grieve, but allow them to just feel, because then sometimes they may not want to talk to you. Maybe they want to talk to their friends, give them their space, but be there, but stay close, but give them space.
Stay close, but give them space. Yeah. And I think that because they may even be past the teen stage, like even the young adult stage.
Mm-hmm.
And, even if they've gone through a marriage or very close relationship where you thought that person was going to, be your son or daughter-in-law, and then it broke up. And that can be even more painful when there was some level of bonding with the family.
Yes.
And the person breaks up.
I always would say, you know what, when somebody had a boyfriend and a girlfriend, says, don't get married to this person because it may not last. Wait until they, really, really
are in the family. And even then, if it doesn't
even
last.
then, but you can love them, but don't let your feelings get in the way of theirs.
Right.
Like, oh, I really, really liked him, or I really, really liked her. And then all of a sudden you're making them feel guilty for breaking up if they were the ones who broke up.
Right.
Or, or all the other machinations. Believe it or not, there's going to be sometimes this isn't about you.
Yeah, that is true. And we got to remember that our children's lives are not about us. Well, we've got to go. And I think this was an opportunity for people to really reflect, especially if someone who's close to you has gone through or is going through a breakup, and you need to be sensitive enough to say the right things, or just say nothing. Sometimes
say nothing. Sometimes it's good to say nothing.
Listen. Just listen.
Yeah. Yes. And because really what they need to do is to just talk it out. And it's okay. And it's definitely okay to cry because you are grieving, but you can get through it. And when you really heal your soul, then you can love again. And you
Pull
can
that book up again so they can see the author.
The author is Frederick Joseph, and it is Patriarchy Blues. It is an amazing book. Follow him on Instagram. Read his book. And it's for everyone. It is for everyone. I was so impressed, and I love this book. And it talked about, and it does talk about, the anger that especially young Black men have, which is the reason why we have that problem of killing each other, because they haven't learned how to cry, because they've been told not to cry.
And I think
even Oprah, I think Oprah had a show once where they said, if boys don't cry tears, they cry bullets.
Yes. So do not tell your son, don't cry. Tell them it's okay to cry. You're still a man.
It's necessary for them to be able to
cry. Yeah. Real men cry.
Even Jesus cried.
I know. I knew
And
you
wept
were
over
Jesus
Jerusalem.
wept.
Wept too.
There you go. Well, we've got to go. We want to remind you all to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms. Feel free to leave your comments. How did you handle your last breakup? How did you help a friend or even a loved one, a child, through a breakup? Let us know. We'll talk about it. Until next time, I'm Naima.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Barbara. We are three Black moms. Bye. Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.